Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Crime Story Diaries. Today we'll be examining a terrifying case, so I invite you to watch the video. Don't forget to leave your comments and likes. Adrianna Hutto, a 7-year-old girl from the small town of Esto, Florida, lived with her mother Amanda Lewis and her 6-year-old half-brother AJ. From an early age, Adrianna suffered from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, which made it difficult for her to sit still and stay out of trouble. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that is usually diagnosed in childhood and often persists into adulthood. People with ADHD have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, and regulating excessive activity. According to Amanda, she struggled to connect with her daughter because of the girl's behavior. In an interview, the woman admitted that she lacked patience with Adrianna and lashed out at the girl more often than at her younger son. AJ was the complete opposite of his sister, calm and quiet. He could play by himself for hours. When Adrianna was just 6 months old, Amanda was called to serve in the National Guard and had to leave her child with relatives for several months. Amanda believed that this separation hindered the formation of a strong bond between her and her daughter, although their relationship improved over time. In addition to the strained relationship between Adrianna and her mother, the Lewis family had other problems. The Department of Children and Families, DCF, began weekly visits to their home after school staff complained about the children's hygiene. A social worker discussed Amanda's parenting methods, particularly her disciplinary practices. An inspection of the home confirmed the social services concerns. The house was dirty and smelly, and there were no toys in the children's room. Amanda explained that she had hidden all the toys in the shed as punishment, but investigators later found no toys there. 3 months before the tragedy, Amanda's co-workers at the nursing home where she worked heard troubling confessions from her. After Adrianna ruined the interior of her mother's car with a marker, Amanda let slip that she wanted to kill the girl. No one took those words seriously at the time, dismissing them as the emotions of an irritated woman. But in light of subsequent events, they took on an ominous meaning. August 8, 2007, was an ordinary hot weekday in Florida. The sun was scorching. 27-year-old Amanda Lewis, who worked as a nursing assistant, was returning home around 8 in the morning after a night shift. Exhausted, she lay down on the couch while her children, 7-year-old Adrianna and 6-year-old AJ, were glued to the TV, watching cartoons. Amanda's 14-year-old stepson, Alan Michael, was still asleep. Waking up between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, Amanda found her younger children excited. They begged for permission to play outside before going shopping for school supplies. In the backyard of the house stood an inflatable pool about 120 centimeters, 4 feet high. Amanda strictly ordered the children not to approach it without her supervision. She usually kept the pool ladder locked in the shed. While the mother was taking a shower and hanging up the washed clothes, getting ready to go to the store, Adrianna and AJ went outside. Looking out the window, Amanda saw her son climbing trees like a little Tarzan. The girl was nowhere to be seen, but the woman did not attach much importance to this. Children often disappear into their fantasy worlds. But sometime later, glancing at the yard again, Amanda saw AJ reaching for something in the pool while standing on a small red wagon. Alarmed, the woman called out to her son, and then he shouted the words that made her blood run cold. Adrianna was lying face down in the pool and not moving. Amanda rushed to the pool. Reaching it, she saw a terrible sight. Her 7-year-old daughter was floating face down, her body blue, with water flowing from her nose and mouth. Amanda called 911 and began begging for help.
911.
I need an ambulance.
What's wrong, ma'am?
My daughter fell in the pool and she's not breathing.
Where at, ma'am?
In Esto.
Ma'am, what's your address?
3343 First Avenue South.
3343 First Avenue South.
Yes, down the road from the post office at the very end.
But when the dispatcher connected her with medics for CPR instructions, the woman seemed not to hear their advice. She screamed into the phone for them to hurry up before her child died. Charles Corcoran, the fire chief, was the first to arrive at the scene. In the backyard of the house, he saw Amanda Lewis kneeling by the body of her 7-year-old daughter, trying to give her artificial respiration. The man took over. Adrianna's body was still warm, but her pulse would disappear and then reappear. The girl was airlifted to Bay Medical Center, where a team of doctors fought for her life for over an hour. But at 5:05 p.m., Adrianna was pronounced dead. The scene of the tragedy indicated an accident waiting to happen. A child's wagon was pressed against the pool, and a child's bicycle lay right next to it. Investigators carefully documented these details, trying to reconstruct the sequence of events. In Corcoran's opinion, Adrianna could have used the wagon as a ladder, climbed onto the edge of the pool, and then fallen into the water, hitting her head. This version was consistent with the bruises and abrasions on the girl's forehead. The wagon and bicycle explained their origin. Amanda's reaction to her daughter's death raised many questions. While Adrianna was being taken to the hospital, the medics saw Amanda in a state of shock, which was quite consistent with the stressful situation. But in the hospital itself, the woman behaved differently. When Dr. Fox came to her to report on the girl's condition, Amanda asked indifferently where the vending machines were. This conversation troubled the doctor, and when an hour later he returned to tell the mother the terrible news of Adrianna's death, she showed no emotion. Witnesses in the admissions department also noticed Amanda's odd composure. The woman calmly entered the room where her dead child lay, stroked her hair, kissed her on the forehead, and walked out. Less than 3 hours after her daughter's death, detectives found Amanda at the hospital. They wanted to talk to her about the circumstances of the incident. Amanda told the police her version of events, how she came home from work and went to take a nap, how she woke up and took a shower, how she let the children go play, and then heard the terrible news from AJ. When asked about the children's meals that day, the woman replied that Adrianna had complained of nausea and vomited in the morning, so she refused to eat. Allegedly, she and her brother did not have breakfast or lunch because they were going to stop for a snack somewhere on the way to the store. When asked about the signs of beatings on the girl's body, Amanda gave ambiguous answers. She suggested that Adrianna could have quarreled with her brother, and he could have hit her. She also hinted that the bruises remained after playing with the neighboring children. The investigation later dismissed these versions. An examination proved that the blows that caused the bruises were inflicted by an adult shortly before death. During her conversation with the police, Amanda admitted that her daughter had recently been examined by a doctor who confirmed the diagnosis of ADHD. The attention deficit forced Adrianna to constantly switch from one activity to another. And on that fatal day, she wanted to swim, then go shopping, then remembered the pool again. According to Amanda, the girl even resisted taking her prescribed ADHD medication. The detectives wondered if the mother had tried to resuscitate her daughter before the medics arrived. Amanda assured them that she had tried to give Adrianna artificial respiration, but was not sure she was doing it correctly. Therefore, the main thing she wanted at that moment was for help to arrive quickly. The overall picture that emerged during the conversation indicated a difficult relationship between Amanda and Adrianna. Repeatedly, the woman reiterated how hard it was for her to communicate with her daughter because of her developmental issues. She also admitted that she sometimes lashed out at the child, yelled at her, and slapped her. But, according to the mother, those were just emotions, not a real desire to cause harm. While Amanda was in the hospital, investigators heard an alarming statement. AJ's grandparents, who were taking care of the boy at the time, reported that he was telling a shocking story about his sister's death. AJ claimed that their mother had drowned Adrianna, allegedly as punishment for bad behavior. Law enforcement immediately contacted child psychologists. That same day, AJ was interrogated twice in their presence.
Who threw her in the pool?
My mama,
Mama threw who in the pool?
my sister, Adrianna. So AJ screamed, AJ, AJ, call the police.
The 6-year-old boy repeated his words. Adrianna had infuriated her mother by spraying window cleaner all over the living room and even on the TV. For this, Amanda grabbed the girl and repeatedly submerged her head underwater.
My sister, she wetted me and sprayed something that make everything smell good, and she didn't do this. She done the stuff that she didn't supposed to, so my mama got mad at her. So she threw her in the pool.
AJ described in detail and even demonstrated how it happened. Despite the persistence with which the boy stuck to his version, some contradictions emerged in his story. At first, he claimed that he saw with his own eyes how his mother was drowning his sister. But then he let slip that at that moment he was shooting a toy gun in another place. AJ also mentioned how Amanda allegedly took Adrianna to the park and pushed her underwater there. But he could not explain how they got to that park. Learning of the accusations from her son's mouth, Amanda called them nonsense. She stated that the boy had a very vivid imagination and could have simply made up this story after reading comics or watching cartoons. When asked why AJ would so harshly slander his own mother, the woman just shrugged. The police faced a dilemma. On the one hand, the testimony of a 6-year-old child could not be 100% reliable. At this age, the line between fantasy and reality is still very thin. And the boy had just experienced a severe psychological trauma, losing his sister. This could have affected his memory and caused him to distort reality. However, completely rejecting AJ's words was not an option either. Too many details indicated that it was not just childish fantasies. Investigators decided to dig deeper into the history of the Lewis family and soon stumbled upon something frightening. It turned out that Amanda had already lost a child under suspicious circumstances. When she was 17, her 6-month-old daughter Alexis died in her sleep. The death was attributed to an epileptic seizure, but now doubts arose about this. Could it be that Adrianna had become the second child to die under the supervision of a neglectful mother? The police felt they could not ignore this fact. A month after the tragedy, Amanda Lewis was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and child abuse. The prosecution offered her a plea deal for involuntary manslaughter, which carried a 10-year prison sentence. This would have avoided a full trial, during which AJ would have had to testify against his mother. But Amanda rejected this offer, insisting on her innocence. The case went to trial in February 2008. The defense tried to prevent AJ from testifying, citing his unreliability as a witness due to his age and trauma. But the court ruled that the boy could testify, and his appearance on the stand became one of the most dramatic moments of the trial. When AJ entered the courtroom, at first he did not even recognize his own mother, who was sitting right in front of him. The child calmly answered questions, assuring that his mother was not in the room. Suddenly, Amanda started crying, and this confused the boy. However, the prosecutor insisted that AJ take a closer look at the woman between her two lawyers. Eventually, the child recognized his mother and burst into tears. Those present were not left indifferent by this sight. Having recovered, AJ was able to more or less coherently retell the events of that fatal day. He confirmed that he saw his mother pushing Adrianna's head underwater while holding her hand over the girl's face so she would not scream. The boy again showed how Amanda was choking and begging for help. This testimony made a depressing impression on the jury. Next, AJ was shown his own drawings made during conversations with investigators. In them, a child's hand depicted shapeless figures near a blue spot that was meant to symbolize the pool. The boy confirmed that it was Amanda drowning Adrianna, while he himself was watching it in fright from a tree branch. These illustrations lent AJ's testimony a chilling credibility. The defense, in turn, cast doubt on the reliability of the 7-year-old witness's testimony. The lawyers insisted that a child of that age is too vulnerable and prone to fantasizing. In the defense's opinion, AJ could well have made up the story of the murder under the influence of grief over the loss of his sister and the leading questions of adults. Moreover, the defense hinted that the boy had been brainwashed by his grandparents, who disliked Amanda. Another argument of the lawyers was that Adrianna's death could be explained by accidental drowning. The bruises on the girl's body allegedly appeared earlier as a result of active play and skirmishes with her brother, and the fact that Adrianna did not eat on the day of her death, the defense explained by the side effects of ADHD medications, which could suppress appetite. All this, in the defense's opinion, pointed to a tragic but unintentional incident. The The prosecution, on the other hand, cast doubt on the version of accidental drowning. After all, the pool was only 80 to 90 centimeters, 31 to 35 inches deep, while Adrianna's height was almost 120 centimeters, 47 inches. So if the girl had simply fallen into the water, she would have immediately stood up. The fact that she drowned indicated that the child was intentionally and prolongedly held in the pool. The prosecution also focused the jury's attention on Amanda's negligent attitude toward her children. Prosecutors reminded them of the constant visits by social services, the lack of toys in the home, and the absence of basic amenities like sheets. And also, about the lack of emotion in a mother who had just lost her daughter. All this, according to the prosecutors, testified to Amanda's callousness and potential capacity for murder. Important evidence also came from the testimony of Amanda's co-workers, who heard her mention wanting to get rid of Adrianna. Particularly telling was the episode with the car interior defaced with a marker and the direct threat against her daughter. Prosecutors argued that these incidents showed the true face of the defendant, a cruel and unrestrained woman. After 4 days of hearings, it took the jury only 2 hours to reach a unanimous conclusion. They found Amanda Lewis guilty of first-degree murder and child abuse. The judge announced the sentence, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Hearing the court's decision, Amanda showed no emotion, as throughout the entire trial, she maintained a calm and somewhat detached appearance. Her lawyers called the jury's verdict a grave mistake and said they would fight for their client's release. The case of Amanda Lewis caused quite a stir in the United States. Many expressed sympathy for the single mother who, in their opinion, fell victim to a coincidence of circumstances and an imperfect justice system. Others saw the tragedy as confirmation that children are always in danger if they are raised by mentally unstable and antisocial parents. Particular discussions revolved around the figure of AJ. Many were outraged that a woman's fate was decided on the basis of the words of a 7-year-old boy. There were statements that a child of that age is very easy to steer in the right direction with leading questions. And excessive pressure from adults, parents, investigators, prosecutors, could have distorted AJ's memories and imposed a skewed picture of events on him. Supporters of the verdict, on the other hand, reminded that the child's testimony was far from the only evidence of Amanda Lewis' guilt. AJ's statements merely fit into the overall context: the mother's indifference to her children, her unbalanced psyche, and the ominous hints about Adrianna. And also, the bruises on the body of the deceased, which matched the picture of violence described by the boy. In 2010, Amanda filed an appeal against the verdict but lost. Since then, she has continued to serve her sentence at Lowell Correctional Institution. In her few interviews, the woman invariably declares her innocence and hopes for justice. Meanwhile, AJ grew up under the care of relatives who adopted him shortly after Amanda's arrest. According to media reports, the now 23-year-old man works and tries to live a normal life. However, according to those close to him, the events of 16 years ago still haunt him in nightmares. It is unknown if he communicates with his mother and if he would ever want to renew his relationship with her. Thus, the story of Adrianna Hutto will probably never receive an unambiguous conclusion. There are too many painful moments and gray areas in it that provoke fierce arguments. Can a person be sentenced to life imprisonment based on the words of a child? Is Amanda Lewis really a sick and cruel mother capable of murder? Or perhaps the woman simply became a hostage to an insidious coincidence of circumstances? Everyone can seek their own answers to these questions. The only thing that is beyond doubt is that the death of 7-year-old Adrianna became an irreparable tragedy. The girl, who needed increased attention, love, and care due to her developmental issues, did not receive it. Through outbursts of anger, whether conscious or not, her mother destroyed the lives of her 2 children. And even if it happened by accident, escaping responsibility is no longer an option. The case of Amanda Lewis can serve as a reminder for all parents. Parenting is a complex process that requires patience, wisdom, and dedication. Every child is special with their own needs and personality. The task of adults is to accept this and learn to manage without violence, because, as experience shows, an outburst of irritation can lead to irreparable consequences. Traditionally, thank you for watching, and remind you that it would be great if you support the video by liking and subscribing to the channel.